session on my GNOME on my GNOME desktop. Basically, it's kind of a nice combination of way of having both at the same time in both applications. But one of the things that happens with the people who work with Windows, if you mention the Linux stuff to them, they kind of feel very afraid, because the very same person who's supposedly an expert in computers all of a sudden becomes a noob when he approaches the other person's machine, and they feel extremely uncomfortable with that. They want you to come over to their side so they can show you their skills, but as soon as they approach the other side, they all of a sudden become, sort of from hero to zero.
I think Gordon mentioned something like that before, didn't you, Gordon, when we had one of our discussions?
I did a blog post about this. It came to me one day that, the blog post, my site, my server's all being changed over. I'm switching to a new server, I'm rebuilding the site. So even as I'm recording, I'm actually working away in the background building these, rebuilding the pages. But I did a blog post, I don't know how long ago, about the new age of the digital enlightenment or something. And it's the idea hit me that people are being, they're being locked into looking for specific icons. Like the internet is the IE icon. The word processor is the word icon. And they're getting used to clicking on icons, and they're getting trained like chimps to press buttons, essentially. So when all you do is use Windows, you're looking for specific buttons. You could put an icon that says, destroy this word text that says, run this virus and destroy this computer. And it's got the word icon next to it. And they won't even read it. They'll just think, word, double click. And people are so used to doing that. And it's the same with when you train people to use Microsoft Office. You're training people to use the Office layout and the wording that Microsoft choose. It might be, they might use import file, to bring something in. OpenOffice might use import document. Abbey Word might use import attachment. But it all means the same thing. But if they don't understand that, they say, it must say import file. Where's the import file? Because that's what they're used to. They don't even read it. Now, the thing with any monoculture, if your whole world revolves around training around Windows and around Microsoft products, then that's what you're being trained to do. You're not thinking abstractly about the type of product. So, and the same with Apple. If you're using all the major Apple products on OS X, then like iPhoto and whatever, then that's what you're being trained to do. It's the same thing. You're not being trained to use that generic class of product, which means that the people that use Linux and BSD are, by nature, they're much more flexible, because you can sit down at a machine. I'm sitting in front of XFCE at the moment on Debian, and I can sit down in front of that, and I know where I am with that. I can sit down at a KDE machine, which I'm not that familiar with, to be honest. But it doesn't take me that long to figure out, right, okay, I can right-click, that's my right-click menu, right, okay, I can do this with it, I can't do that, right, I need to get this function, it might be called X, Y, Z, it might be called something else, but I'll find it. It's something that I know the generic function that I'm looking for, it might be called something different, it might be in a different place, but that's okay, I can find it. I'm not looking for a specific icon. There's all these different desktop environments, window managers, looks, feels, you can move your panels about, you can have icons, not have icons. The whole desktop can be completely different, sitting down from one machine to the next, to the next, to the next. And Linux users generally are training themselves more in a generic way to look at functions and to look at generic classes of things. A word processor. You can sit down to Abbey Word and you can get on with it just fine. Sit down to LibreOffice and get on with it just fine. KOffice, again, just fine. It's no problem. Because you're looking at classes of things. You're looking at, instead of specific words, instead of specific icons. In Linux, how many different icon sets and themes do you have for GTK, for Qt? open box themes, Fluxbox themes, LXDE themes. So well, that's actually GTK. That's that. Okay. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The machines are all very, very different. Your brain is not hardwired into the chimp recognizing the icon on the screen and double clicking on it. The mind is by its very nature, you're sitting down at a machine and saying, okay, the panel's at the top on this one, or this is like the Ubuntu, the Unity thing, or the panel's down the left-hand side. And that's no problem. Your mind, within a very, very short time, your mind adjusts to that. And okay, your pointer might go, like when Ubuntu switched the buttons from the left to the right, or the other way around. Okay, by habit, you might end up keep going to the opposite corner. But that's just out of habit. You know that it doesn't matter. You're not clicking on that blank space in that corner of the window going, why is it not closing? You're looking at it going, okay, there's a button there that says, that hovers and it says close, and that's the button you close on. It's just switched to another place in the screen, that's all. It might look something different because of the theme you're using. But the point is, your brain is flexible enough to use it as a computer. You're not flummoxed when you sit down in front of a machine. And because you can do that, because you can jump from Linux machine to Linux machine to Linux machine, and they're all different. You can sit in front of Mandriva, Debian, whatever, it doesn't matter.
There is also tolerance to change, which I think is what Microsoft very much discourages. So a person comes from Windows and then he wants to use Linux, might see that something is different and then basically be scared and move away and say, I'm not used to that. Whereas the mindset of a person who's using Linux is used to the idea of basically sitting on a machine and saying, oh, look, this photo editor, it's not the one I used before. But that person will be kind of tolerant towards that and will be accepting the change. He'll just say, well, that's Linux, and this is supposed to also be simple and to work, and usually it does. But with Windows, people are being taught to think not of a web browser, they think of the Internet or the Internet Explorer or a browser or the Internet. Most people will just call it the Internet. They just think of the blue E, they click that. And if you give them something different, and you tell them this is a different browser, they say, what's browser? Is it like Google? And they don't actually know what the notions are. So
yeah, the thing is though, I mean, that makes better employees. If you're more flexible, it makes a better employee. Because, I mean, I can sit down in front of any Linux computer, and okay, I've not used Fluxbox very much, but I could adapt to Fluxbox pretty quickly, if that was what was put down in front of me. And the same applies with put down the new version of Windows 8, whenever that arrives. I've never seen that. I know there's vaporware. I've never seen it, but I can adapt to that pretty quickly. A Mac, which I've very rarely touched, I can adapt to that pretty quickly as well, because it's just a different UI. It's a different icon set, and okay, there's different things in it, but that's fine. You can find your way around that. That's the point. You can find your way around that, and as you said, change doesn't faze you. It's just a computer. It's a tool. And once you get over the specifics of that particular layout, that particular desktop, it's essentially just a series of generic tools to get things done.
People don't seem to complain so much about the phones being extremely different. So a person who's buying a Nokia phone, let's say with Symbian, and then moves to, an iPhone or something, it will be different. The menus, the applications, the way you make a phone call, phone books, things like that, all of it is different. But people kind of accept that phones are supposed to be diverse, but whereas, in my experience, people, when they see something that's not Windows, it's not a PC, or it's not a desktop computer, it's something different. And we need to encourage people to think in terms of, to first of all think of the desktop market as something that's more open. So when you sit down on a keyboard and, using a mouse, you shouldn't be expecting Windows to be in front of you. You probably do expect to have a browser of some sort, just something with an address bar. You can put your whatever address, you have your Google search bar, and you can go around, do your things. And increasingly people maybe tolerate the fact that they have Firefox on Windows. Even if they go into a library, they might have some choice of some sort. But I think the reason we actually approach this kind of area is because we're talking about how hard it is in enterprises which makes Windows and Linux, and the managers tend to run the Windows PCs for, writing letters and spreadsheets and things like that. whereas people who deal with engineering or development, they prefer to use Linux. And that's been sort of almost frowned upon, or it is seen as a bit scary and misunderstood from my experience.
Well, yeah,